The math is already baked in the cake. This country is bankrupt. The whole Western financial world is bankrupt. My thought process is when this goes down, I would much rather have a nationalist, that's Trump, as president, as opposed to a globalist, Harris, because when this goes down, I think everyone would much prefer that it goes down under the rule of law.
This is Kaiser Johnson, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for September 9th through September 16th, 2024, while supplies last. First, we have a very limited supply of backdated silver Australian Kookaburra 10-ounce coins at just $3.10 over spot per ounce. Next, 1-ounce backdated platinum maple leaves are just $80 over spot. And finally, we have compelling pricing on various pre-33 American gold coins. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're delighted to have this widely followed returning guest, Bill Holter, who is an analyst of all markets and a former stock brokerage manager, joins us this Wednesday, 9/11/2024. Bill, thanks for coming back on Liberty and Finance.
Thanks for having me back, Dunnigan.
Our audience widely anticipates your arrivals here. Your interviews with us are among our most viewed, and people really appreciate your down-to-earth approach to things. One thing that's absolutely necessary to talk about on 9/11 is the legacy of that day that changed all of our lives and apparently changed our country's trajectory forever. If you would first maybe share with us your personal reflections on what you feel the lasting impacts are of what happened on 9/11, and if you believe that people need to understand anything that perhaps most people don't understand about what this really reveals about the state of our world, the state of our country, and the state of where we stand as ordinary members of the country in the thick of things.
Right. Well, first off, understand that the Patriot Act was already written and ready to roll prior to 9/11. And I mean, I guess the lasting legacy is just go to an airport, try to get on an airplane, and you're going to be accosted, at security. I mean, the lasting legacy is that was the beginning. It was the foundation, if you will, to a surveillance/police state, which is where we're headed.
Yeah, it doesn't take much to recall how different life was prior to that. And it was maybe one of the first times that we got told, you need to get used to a new normal. And that new normal always seems to take us in the direction of more and more surveillance, less and less freedom, less and less privacy. Any outfalls from that you feel that in your view are noteworthy, that people should be aware, that areas where people maybe can still have choices or make a difference in their lives and not necessarily cooperate and just roll over and give up all of the freedoms and the privacies and so on that otherwise would be taken away from us, because it was maybe a first or recent major move, but not the last in that direction. And do you see it as a part of a pattern, and any thoughts you have on how to basically stand our ground in the face of that pattern?
Well, you're saying it's a pattern. I mean, understand that the whole thing was a plan from the beginning. Look at you can find it on the internet. It's difficult because everything is banned or hidden or whatever. But you can go and look up the University of Alaska Fairbanks study on Building 7. And I mean, that took, I think, 5 or 6 years to complete. And the conclusion was that the government's story as to how or why that building fell was complete bullshit. Not even a possibility of being correct. I mean, you had engineers working on this, like I said, for 5 or 6 years. They came out with a study. You didn't hear one single mainstream media outlet talk about it. It's been buried. You'd have a much better chance if you did not use Google as your search engine to actually find it. But it's well worth reading, especially if you want your blood pressure to go up, because that will be the case when you when you read the documentary. But as I mentioned, understand that this is a plan, and it's part of a plan literally to take down the United States, which is the only stumbling block for the globalists to basically take over and control the entire world. I mean, some things you can do personally, and I know this is going to sound weird. I've actually survived doing this, and it had nothing to do with, trying not to have a footprint. I rode a horse every single day for, 20 years, and I never switched over to a smartphone because I'd break a dozen a year. But they would fall out of my pocket. I mean, you're 6 feet up in the air, and you drop your phone, it's gonna break. So I've used a flip phone, and now I'm hearing that they may be going away. But I'm actually glad that I have used a flip phone, because I don't want to be I don't want to run into a telephone pole or a street sign or hit by a car or whatever because I'm on a phone, on the internet. I mean, it has worked for me. I've worked around it. People have laughed about it. There's a real reason for me not to have switched over, and I'm actually glad I didn't. Another thing you could do, spend cash. If you spend $500 a week or whatever you spend, have that in your pocket. Spend cash. Don't always use a credit card everywhere you go. I mean, if you go in for an ice cream that costs, $8, $10, whatever, spend cash. Don't use the credit card. Don't leave a footprint. But understand that we are living in a surveillance state. And if they could have cameras, well, they actually do have cameras in your own home. I mean, you have smart TVs, you got smart washers, smart dryers, smart refrigerators. And try this. Talk about something unusual. Talk about balloons or whatever. Do that for an hour around your cell phone, around your computer, around your TV. And all of a sudden, your email is going to get bombarded with, these balloons are on sale. So, if they could have, outright cameras in everybody's houses, they would do it. It is a surveillance state, and I mean, you need to push back.
We'd also like to talk with you as we're heading down the runway here to the election coming up in the beginning of November. We had the presidential debate last night between Trump and Kamala Harris, and your view of the importance of this next election. Do you believe that it's going to be consequential? Do you believe, well, first of all, do you have any opinions about that? Number two, do you have opinions about likely outcome? And number three, do you have opinions about the likely fallout of that likely outcome? So if you could take those in three stages, does the election even matter? If it does, who do you think is going to prevail? And number three, what do you think is going to conspire because of that?
Yeah, that's a broad question, but I'll make it just a little bit broader by asking you, do you think we're even going to have an election?
All right, that's a fair.
If we're 4, 5, 6 weeks out, and all of a sudden it's looking like an absolute landslide for Trump, I don't believe we're going to have an election. I mean, if it gets past what the left believes is the margin of error for cheating, then we will have a false flag and there will not be an election. Do I think the election matters? From a financial standpoint, no. I think the math is already baked in the cake. This country is bankrupt. The whole Western financial world is bankrupt. Could they use the false flag to kick that table and cover up the finger pointing or cover up the fault part of it? Yeah, that's possible too. My thought process is when this goes down, I would much rather have a nationalist, that's Trump, as president, as opposed to a globalist, Harris, because when this goes down, I think everyone would much prefer that it goes down under the rule of law, as opposed to under the rule of their law, whatever they decided that is on any given day. So does it matter financially? No, I don't think it matters either way, because mathematically we're cooked. I mean, the system is bankrupt. It's insolvent. Well, when you go through bankruptcy, do you go through that bankruptcy under the rule of law or under something that they just make up as they go? What was the rest of your? It was a three-part question.
If who do you think will prevail, and what do you see as the fallout of that?
If it was this is the same thing I said. I spoke 5 days before the 2016 election. I was in Munich, and David Morgan and I were doing a conference, and it was quite a crowd. And I made the comment. I said, "Wow, there's more people here than at a Hillary rally," which the crowd laughed at. And then there's a 5-second pause, and they laughed again because of the interpreter. But when I do conferences, I only do a Q&A. I don't ever do a PowerPoint or anything like that. I don't want to talk about what people don't want to hear. I'd rather take their questions and talk about what people want to hear. The first question was, who did I think was going to win, Trump or Hillary? And I'm going to tell you the same answer now with Trump and Harris. I think if it is a clean election, there's no question that Trump will win. If it's not a clean election and they are able to cheat enough to put her over the top, that's a possibility also. I believe that the fallout either way is going to be pretty severe. If Kamala wins, I think you'll finally see conservatives no longer being polite, because I think a lot of people view this as the last chance to take this country back and go in the direction of the rule of law. And I mean, if Trump wins, all you have to do is go back to the summer of 2020, the mostly peaceful protests. I think you'll have riots, funded riots. I don't think they're organic riots. I think a lot of that was funded. I think a lot of that was paid for. And I think you will see that. And it very well may be that that's one of the reasons that all of these illegal immigrants have been let into the country. They're not women, they're not children, they're military-age men. And I think if Trump wins, they will also be part of that show.
The other thing I wanted to get your opinion on was a story that was broken, at least to me, about a week ago about a nationwide scandal of real estate valuations, real estate taxation, price fixing, and there's several aspects to this, but basically there is a legal case that's proceeding. They have evidence in 47 of the 50 states right now that municipalities, rather than using comparables for real estate valuations used as a tax basis, instead have been basing their real estate valuations used as a basis for taxes on what the next year's budget target was for the municipality. What do we need to hit? And then back into that number by just cooking the books and saying, everybody, this is how much your house is worth, so pay up. And that there's several aspects to that. One is it's fraud because it's not based on actual comparisons to others sold in the neighborhood, et cetera, that are comparable. The other is that essentially taxing unrealized capital gains, which is, has never been proved in our country. And it's very serious for a couple of reasons. One is it looks as though this is, if this comes down and if valuations roll over and this lovely party that's been going on for decades now of increasing, ever increasing starts to turn into decreasing, that up to 1/3 at least of Americans won't even be able to afford their taxes on the properties that they own based on the government's approved targets for mortgage affordability. And secondly, that these municipalities who have municipal bonds and everything, and that pension plans are relying on those municipal bonds, et cetera, could be a big risk to people's pension plans and the solvency of a lot of these municipalities as well. So your thoughts on this breaking scandal about real estate evaluation and how it may affect banks, how it may affect pensions and ordinary homeowners?
Yeah, well, first I'd ask you, are you surprised?
No, it actually
know what their budget is and back into it by raising the property value on you. I mean, surprise. I mean, that's no shock whatsoever.
One of the things we've observed and we've had close friends, acquaintances, and family members who all in the past decade or two have been basically taxed off their property. They had to let go a lake home that had been in the family for generations, et cetera, that sort of thing. And there's the old saying, right, from the Communist Party, grind the middle class between the millstones of inflation and taxation. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it. People are finding it harder and harder to pay taxes. I mean, I bought where I am now back right as COVID started. I mean, like the first week that COVID started, I closed on this place. My taxes have doubled here, or very, very close. They're probably 93% increase over 4 years. And of course, that includes, they did pass a bond for the school district and what have you. But I mean, that's not a surprise at all. The question is, what happens when real estate does fall? And it's already starting to soften. I mean, you're seeing commercial real estate has completely collapsed. Probably the average commercial property today versus 4 or 5 years ago is down 50%. I think you're going to see the same thing in housing. I think you could easily see 40, 50, as much as 70% or more drop in housing prices. And I think that'll be a function of more difficult credit. It'll be a function of less people having jobs, less people having the ability to even pay for a mortgage. Now, the question is, what do these municipalities do? Where do they cut? How do they cut? It's literally, I guess it goes back to what I said originally. The math does not work. The whole system is cooked because the math doesn't work in any facet or any corner of the system. They've pushed the math to and beyond the limit of possibly functioning.
In the face of that, do you think that the types of remedies that we've talked about in the past for people reducing risks, for example, to bank exposure by carrying less of their balances in the bank, having more things in real assets like silver and gold in their own possession, et cetera, does this help people in this regard as well? If this real estate valuation scandal and the municipal exposures to it and the pension plans that are exposed to those bonds are part of this whole system that you've described, does the remedy that we've discussed in the past of owning real assets still serve people well in terms of their retirement, their savings, et cetera, in the face of this risk?
Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, if you have gold and silver out of the system, you have capital. The only question is, how much capital do you have? Do you have enough capital that you'll be able to live on, pay your property taxes on? I mean, everything's relative as far as size. If you've got just a little bit of gold and silver, yeah, it'll help you eat, but it's not going to help you pay taxes. And just to correct something that you mentioned, that these municipal bonds are part of pension plans. They're not. Municipal bonds are tax-free. pension plans are tax deferred. There's no sense in anyone ever owning a municipal bond for a retirement account. Those are all taxable bonds, whether they be corporate or treasury. But that's what the pension system is built on. It's not built on muni bonds.
All right. So turning our attention to precious metals as a risk reduction vector for people to use to own real assets, you mentioned something that I think is key and critical, and that's figuring out what length of time you want to carry on your household and what your outflows monthly need to be. And in that sense, figuring out how many ounces of various types of either gold or silver, et cetera, you need to have on hand to carry you through that period of time that you're targeting. Any rules of thumb that you recommend to people as they do that analysis for themselves to come up with what's the right amount for them?
Yeah, you can't do a rule of thumb because you don't know what the future purchasing power is going to be. It will increase from where it is now. How much, you have no idea. I mean, it may be that if you've got 200 or 300 ounces of silver, that might be enough, depending upon what the revaluation, what the reset is. All I can tell you is historically, if you had 1,000 ounces of gold or 10,000 ounces of silver, you were a wealthy person for hundreds and hundreds of years. Do those numbers, will they still work? Yeah, I think they probably will, but there's no way to know exactly what the purchasing power is going to be. And I would say you can only do the best that you can do with what you have. I mean, one person may have saved a grand total of $50,000. Somebody else may have saved $5 million. It means the same to each person because that's their nest egg. And the one that's at 50,000, can't do anything to get the 5 million. So do the best you can. And I would just say the rule of thumb is you only leave in the system what you need for current bills, and you take everything out of the system that you don't want to lose, because in the system, you're going to lose it. So, I mean, do the best you can. There is no way. I guess there is a way. If you could do the math based on today's pricing and today's purchasing power, if you're comfortable now, you should certainly be comfortable later because the purchasing power is going to pick up. I don't know. Is it going to double, triple, quadruple? Who knows? I mean, there's no way to forecast that. But understand that the purchasing power will pick up. So, if you've not been able to accumulate thousands of ounces of silver or hundreds or thousands of ounces of gold, don't fret. Just do the best you can. And it may work out that what you're thinking is not enough today may end up being enough to get you from here to the next system with wealth intact.
Increasing numbers of our viewers and subscribers call and they talk to us about having heard your message and other guests on our channel for years and years and years. And it's interesting because Rick Rule talks about Stansberry Research said it takes, through their research, it takes at least 12 exposures on average for a person, even when they're interested in a particular topic, of exposure to new information before they are moved to action. So anyway, it sometimes takes, they've been listening to this for a long time, and then finally they've become convinced, okay, despite the fact that it puts me in cognitive dissonance with everything that my financial planner is telling me, or that I'm hearing on the mainstream financial press, or that my coworkers are off doing all this stuff, I've got to take action. And then they often run into difficulty either with their spouse or with their financial planner. When they go and they say, I'm going to start walking to a different drummer here, they get told, oh, no, don't do that. You don't want to be outside the system because it's you got to stay in the market because that's where you got to cost average. And when there are dips, you buy the dips and all that sort of thing. Any thoughts from you, having been a former stockbroker, manager, on people dealing with their financial planners, their personal financial advisors, their stockbrokers, their pension managers, that sort of thing, when they finally come to the point where they want to take solid assets into their own control, but they get told by the people who they've been trusting not to do it. How to navigate that?
Well, I guess I would just be blunt and tell you, don't take shit from anybody. It's your money. You worked for it. It's your money. It's not their money. You get to do with your money whatever it is that you want to do. And yeah, if you go to your financial planner and tell them, I want to take X amount of dollars out, or I want to take the whole account out, or whatever, and they're going to ask, what are you going to do with it? You tell them, I'm going to buy gold and silver. Well, the first thing they're going to say is, oh, well, don't do that. Gold and silver are so risky. Well, I mean, gold and silver are the opposite of risk. They have zero liability against them. They have zero counterparty risk. They cannot bankrupt. When that brokerage house goes down, you've got your gold, you've got your silver in hand. It didn't get touched, whereas your shares are going to be taken away in the great taking. And I would just tell you, whether it's your financial planner, or whether it's people, friends of yours, a spouse, it's a little difficult because it's always good to have your spouse on board with what you're doing. But if your spouse is absolutely adamantly against doing gold and silver, just understand that no one is going to protect you for you. The only one that's going to protect you is yourself. So again, it's your money, and no one's going to protect you unless you protect yourself. So, take action.
One more thing I wanted to hit on this while we're here. We mentioned certified financial planners, personal financial advisors, pension managers, etc. Okay, so finally, some people finally come to the point where they want to go into solid assets, and they look around, as you were saying, whether your pile is 50 grand or 5 million, whatever the size of your pile, your nest egg, often that nest egg is in a retirement account that's been built up incrementally over an entire working career.
Right.
And I hear sob stories every week from clients who call up and say, I wish I had called you first, because I ended up calling, and they name one of these big name places that has glamorous ads on television with celebrity spokespeople, whether it's retired politicians, retired Hollywood or TV actors, retired sports stars, retired people from the U.S. Mint. And they said, I got taken to the cleaners, that they realized they got upsold. They got sold proof sets, and they got sold rare, so-called rare coins, and they got sold fractional ounce foreign minted special things, and they ended up paying 2 to 5 times what would be the normal rate for ordinary investment grade bullion. So even when you win the hearts and minds of people and they realize, I've got to take action, I've got to protect myself, it's like when people stepped off the ship in New York, and the people tried to sell them the Brooklyn Bridge. It seems like there are these sleazy, unscrupulous, predatory firms that have some of the biggest names and some of the best ads that are taking people to the cleaners, and they end up with the valuation of their portfolio being half or less of what it should have been.
Right.
Thoughts from you on how people can avoid being taken like that and oversold and upsold, because these people are well-intended. They've worked all their lives, and they're not experts at this. They're taking the advice of these people that seem to be experts. Thoughts from you to help people.
Yeah, if you're talking about a retirement plan, there's really only 2 things you should look at. I mean, if it's gold or if it's silver, you either look at gold or silver eagles, or bar form or generic form. You want either the coin of the realm, which I think is the best thing to do. You're going to pay some premium, small premium in gold. You'll pay more premium in silver eagles. But within a retirement account, they can't sell you numismatics, and that's where the real ripoff is. I mean, there's some people that interview all the time, and I mean, you'll see their faces from interview to interview, and what they're saying is correct. If you're going to do silver in the United States, you do junk silver or you do eagles. Those are the coins of the realm. If you're going to do gold, then you want either Eagles or you want pre-33 gold. And I think pre-33 gold is an excellent choice, but understand there's very, very little difference in price between, say, an MS63, 62 or 63 St. Gaudens or Liberty versus an Eagle. They're almost the same price.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the one that I'm thinking about right now, they charge regular retail price on it. So there's already a markup in it. And then they charge 26% on top of that. And people, they don't check their invoice. They just send 100,000 or whatever, and they get the coins and they think they're good until somebody asks them, what did you pay for it? Or they go to look to sell it and they find out they got completely smoked on the buy. Mm-hmm. And that is disclosed. But in what industry, in what world does anybody get to charge 26% commission on a commodity?
And I wanted to clarify one thing when you say stick with Eagles, but there are still ways people get snookered into buying proof Eagles, which are way more expensive.
Yeah, no, just regular current year or past year Eagles that come in a tube. They're not graded, they're not mint state anything. They're just uncirculated coin.
Yeah, one of the things that really hurts my feelings, because we founded this channel originally as Reluctant Preppers, trying to help ordinary people prepare for unforeseen situations to protect their family's well-being going forward. So it really rankles deeply for us when we hear about these sincere people that have worked all their lives and saved all their lives and been responsible. And here they're trying to be extra responsible by going into gold or silver. And in a 1-hour phone call, some sharp, slick salesman can skim off and rip off half of their life savings as this over commission and leave them with, the rest and tell them, oh, you did good. Don't worry. In 5 years, you'll be happy. And your point is, no, that's not necessary. Just stick with the basics, just straight up uncirculated bullion, just bullion grade, investment grade bullion from the U.S. Mint is the way to go. Eagles, silver Eagles, gold Eagles, not proofs, not graded.
Correct.
Okay. That's helpful. And you made the distinction that, for example, junk silver is great for a personal purchase. It can't go into an IRA.
Can't do it in an IRA.
Yeah.
Yeah, junk is not allowed in an IRA because it's 90% pure. And the regs for IRAs is, with the exception of the gold eagle, the coin is, the metal has got to be 99.9 fine. Gold eagles are not, but there is that one exception that gold eagles can be held in IRAs.
All right. Now, we've asked you this in the past in a different way where you've talked to us about the coin of the realm. For people who find themselves having accumulated a whole bunch of, say, bars or rounds, whether gold or silver, do you recommend that now would be a reasonable time if they wanted to get into legal tender coins like from the U.S. Mint, whether junk silver or modern uncirculated silver Eagles or gold Eagles, or even the old pre-33 gold, to swap bars that they are rounds that they may have had from the past that they bought cheaper for these other forms, even though some of these modern Eagles would have a higher premium than the bars or the rounds carry? Do you think they would be advantage from a preparedness standpoint to end up holding an asset that is legal tender coins rather than bars or rounds?
Yeah, over the last, call it, 10 plus years, right now is the best time to swap because the premiums, the premiums on junk silver have pretty much evaporated. So you're not looking at a huge loss doing your swap. The only place I would recommend that you do silver Eagles would be within the IRA, because I think junk itself is a better form to own. When this system goes down, what would you rather have? 14 dimes or one silver Eagle? That's a no-brainer. You got 14 transactions versus one. And in gold, there you go. You got mercury dimes. Okay.
Yeah. That happens to be that. Yeah.
Yeah, and in gold, The premiums haven't moved too much either way over the last 10 years on Eagles. I think the biggest swing has been, what, 3 or 4 percentage points. That's not been a huge, did not have huge premiums. But I would just say gold is more likely to be confiscated than silver. And if you're sitting on gold bars or foreign sovereign coin or generic rounds, and there's a confiscation, you're going to be included. If you own Eagles, you may or may not be included. And if you own pre-1933 gold, the odds are very slim that you would have your coins confiscated because they are considered legally considered collectibles.
And that's
especially in silver. Especially in silver. If you're sitting on bars, if you're sitting on rounds, if you're sitting on foreign sovereigns like Maple Leafs or Crew Grants or whatever, do yourself a favor and do the swap now, because the cost for you to swap is probably the lowest it's been in the last 10 years.
Bill, if people want to follow your work on an ongoing basis, how should they get connected?
You can just go to my website. It's simply billholter.com. There is a contact icon on the site where you can contact me, or if you want to just go contact my business email directly, that's BHOLTER@proton.me.
We're always grateful for your presence here, Bill. Your wisdom and experience across many of these fields is unestimable, and just very grateful for your presence. And you've talked to us in the past about strategic relocation and preparedness and that sort of thing. So appreciate all that you've shared with us in that regards as well. Folks, if you haven't picked up on some of those, if you just search Bill Holter under our YouTube channel, under Liberty and Finance on YouTube, you'll find that he's spoken with us often about the importance of having now what you think you might need. Because when the system locks up, and we have systemic risk in many ways right now, and when the system locks up, what you have now is what you're going to have. So, Bill, always thank you for joining us on Liberty and Finance.
Thank you, Dunnigan.
This is Kaiser Johnson, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for September 9th through September 16th, 2024, while supplies last. First, we have a very limited supply of backdated silver Australian Kookaburra 10-ounce coins at just $3.10 over spot per ounce. Next, 1-ounce backdated platinum maple leaves are just $80 over spot. And finally, we have compelling pricing on various pre-33 American gold coins. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.